friends. And if we're not, we really should be. This video is to complete and clarify my previous video, which was to complete and clarify a video I made about 2 years ago that I included in a reference in a video, YouTube video, of exposing Einstein as the world's greatest plagiarist. Absolutely true fact. Now, I say, I have a website, Why World's Greatest, and I put in the quantity and quality. In quantity, definitely challenges is number one, and in quality, I'm almost sure is number one. You see, I did lightification of electromagnetic radiation. Lightification of electromagnetic radiation. That I said it was the futuristic, multi-purpose, coherent beam. The laser, futuristic, multi-purpose, coherent beam. So sure that I said, well, now let's see. What would I use it for first? What should I? And I said, well, I have delved into sightlessness. Now, they say blind people. No, they don't use that because blind has the connotation of not maybe understanding the subject matter. They refer to themselves as sightless people. So when I attend their meetings, they're sightless group, and they're great people. Which, now I have to say, one of my favorite jokes is a true humor story. Next to me was a distinguished-looking gentleman, and during the meeting, and so forth, he'd say, well, you see that vase over there? And yeah, he says, well, how do you like that sort of pink color? Well, that's good. Did you do that? Yeah. He said, and the flowers? He said, oh, yeah. He said, well, my wife kind of helped maybe in the arrangement. He said, well, you see that painting over there? And I said, yeah. He says, well, do you see this type of brush strokes and color? And I said, yeah, that's good. He says, well, that's one of my paintings. I said, gee, I said, yeah, you should be proud of that. That's real good. Well, after the meeting, he says, hey, he says, walk me to my car, will you? I said, okay. So we're walking to the car, and I get to the car, and he looks over, and then I looked, and it's got Knudsen grammar school. And I look at him, and he starts smiling. I says, are you that Knudsen? He says, yeah. I says, well, then you have the Knudsen Dairy Corporation. I said, you're a multimillionaire. He says, well, I have some money. And he's laughing. And I said, well, I figured he was industrial blind. And that is, they see blurred, but they need special, real glasses in the optics in order to maybe get to focus to see, or they can't really see, and it's called industrial blinder. So that's what I thought he was, because he's talking about his artwork and so forth, and the Knudsen grammar school, and he gets in his limousine, and his wife is laughing, and I says, well, that's good. He's got a good sense of humor. She says, oh, that's his favorite joke. Somebody new comes into the meetings, and then I would attend them, of course. And but that was the first time he was there. They said if he meets somebody new, he likes to do that favorite jokes, because he just likes the idea that they can't see that he's really blind. Oh, really? She likes, yeah. Now, I put forward electrification of electron radiation. That isn't the only thing I've done. That's number one in the world, and who am I? The only way I can make sense of why I'm still unknown was that it turned out that when I found out at the beginning that Hoover was a homosexual, they say queer in them days, but then that he was a pedophiliac, you got to replace him. Now, anybody who tried to replace Hoover died, sometimes violently. Melvin Purvis, an FBI hero, they said, well, let's make him the director. He said, well, if you want me to, I will. Hoover got him out of the FBI, and then he was found shot dead. Hoover ruled it was suicide. Just like Hoover was the investigator of Kennedy, who said, well, I understand now that there's Doc C. PhD company who has this ability that Hoover uses. All right, so that was maybe the foundation of getting me to be a candidate, and how I won, because Doc C started a renaissance, rinascimento, and dirty politics. It was just called dirty politics by almost everybody. A rinascimento, renaissance, in the discipline of political science, if you please. Do you understand? And that is, instead of a senatorial level, we have a presidential level public debates, especially with TV and with his scholarly appearance. Even though he's Irish and Roman Catholic, he might win. And that's the way it was done. Do you understand? So, I'm the original 007. You better believe that. I used to go to the corner store where I did cash my checks. And they'd say, your ID. And I'd say, it's 007. They say, 007. What's the matter? Well, it's all right. You say 007, but I'm in mathematical physics, and it's 007. They look at me and say 007. Say, and they kind of tease me, and then I tease them back and joke around, because my daughter did the same kind of work, which is work, and I try to, joke around and for the same company, but not at that store. Well, when I went to where my daughter was and would joke around with her, of course, and we laugh and joke around, the girl there says, oh, that's that old flirt from our store. What do you mean? He says, oh, he's always joking with us. He's that old flirt from our store. My daughter says, old flirt? No, that's my father. Says, your father? Yeah. Well, now when the girls found out that I'm joking with them because my daughter works for the same company, only in another store, well, then they would really kind of tease me and joke around. When I walk in, they say ID, and they say, oh, we know you're 007. Then after a while, I say, oh, we know you're 007. Well, now Hoover, that's the truth, and then Hoover had inside jokes with his power. So it came forward where they have 007 in the movies, only they move them to England so that if I tell the truth, hey, the English are going to cover up. And that's the way they do it. You think about the war in Iraq. Who put forward these reports from their intelligence about weapons of mass destruction and why? He was a coward of Vietnam, now playing big-time soldier. He says, I got my troops there. If I don't use them, I'll lose them. So he invaded with the proof from England. See, I can say all of these things without what? Verbatim, absolute truth. That they Mickey Moused the reports so he could use the troops, and how many did they lose, and how many hundreds of thousands did they kill? Sure, the man was bad, but the main thing was that the Zionists wanted him out because he wanted the Palestinians to have their own country, and so did all the Arab nations. And of course, Zionism, which is the political, they're worse than the Nazis. They do the same thing the Nazis do. They practice genocide. Of all countries, for the Jews to practice genocide, because the crazy Nazis practice genocide, the Jews practice genocide. Not the Jews, the Zionists, who control Israel, practiced genocide against the Palestinians. Yeah. These are absolute true facts. So now, what proof do I have against Einstein? Well, the proof is, they say, well, it's my word against his, or anybody else's word against his, history's word against. He's such a genius. Well, he is such a genius that he couldn't do the field equations for general relativity. Tried for 2 years. Philip Hilbert, or his first name, Hilbert, was one of the best world mathematicians. Hilbert put the field equations for general relativity and sent Einstein a copy. Then Hilbert published them. 5 days later, Einstein, letter for letter, said the exact same thing of Hilbert. And they say, well, those who cover for Einstein and hype up, they say, well, Einstein's a genius. Hilbert copied Einstein to genius. No. Hilbert published them 5 days before Einstein gave a lecture verbatim of Hilbert. And why would Hilbert copy Einstein? He's a world mathematician. Einstein flunked mathematics at the university, needed Minkowski to help him. His wife, Merritt, was a mathematician. Is that the only thing? No. The photoelectric effect. Philip Leonard demonstrated, explained it. Who's Philip Leonard? One of the top mathematical physicists. His wife, Melissa Merritt, worked for Philip Leonard. Einstein got the photoelectric effect from his wife, from Philip Leonard, and maybe even talked to him. And he won the Nobel Prize on that. When he got the money, he gave all the money to his wife. Coincidence. Olinto de Pretro. How can I get a proof? Olinto de Pretro put forward E equals mv squared. He used v velocity as for the velocity of light. Set with a small amount of matter, obtained an enormous amount of energy. Explained it. Who is Olinto de Pretro? His brother worked for a Mr. Baso. Who's Mr. Baso? He's the father or the uncle of the Pretro brothers. The father, I think, of Michael Baso. Yeah, I think he's the father of Michael Baso, who worked with Einstein in the patent office, who was a senior, and we're always together. And Michael Baso introduced him to Olinto de Pretro and talked to him about E equals mv squared. And I think that's the way Einstein used it at first. But then they said E equals mc squared. Yeah, E equals mc squared. No, he copied de Pretro's work just like he copied Hilbert's work letter for letter later as far as general relativity. Now, Professor Umberto Bartosi, who's a mathematician and a historical mathematician, wrote a book. Because Einstein says, well, he don't know about Poincare. How do they not know about Poincare? Poincare put forward relativity at the World's Congress of the Best Scientists in 1904, at least a year before Einstein's 1905 plagiarist papers. And in there he mentioned one, they say, well, it's your word against Einstein's. No, he did make one mistake. He mentioned one reference, Michael Baso. You understand? Now, Professor Umberto Bartosi has a book about that. You can look it up. So this is about Einstein being the greatest plagiarist, and this I'm going to keep within 15 minutes. Is the truth, and I should get the honors and compensation. You know, of course, anyone who should help, thank you.